Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome to my channel. It's me, Gamerturk, and we got another review coming. Last week, I finished the final episode of my Sonic Adventure 2 Battle playthrough, so it's only natural that we continue the tradition by reviewing SA2. Once again, reviewing a 15-year-old game, we have two perspectives, of course. At least that's how I usually look at relatively old games. How was the game back in the day, and how is the game holding up today, which consists of timeless stuff, for example gameplay and the story, and the things that can actually age, which usually comes down to graphics and effects. I usually start the reviews by talking about the story, but this is gonna be an exception where we talk about the approach towards the game, since Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 are quite different about how they were thought out by Sonic Team. Sonic Adventure 1 was essentially a tech demo for the Dreamcast. It was a game to show the capabilities of the platform. It tried to do every kind of stuff, including a fishing simulator. It had much more freedom and open spaces when it came to stage design. Sonic Adventure 2 is a refinement of SA1. It is much more linear in terms of both the story and gameplay. SA2 tries to be more of an action-adventure movie than an action-adventure game. You can take this both ways. If you enjoy a narrative-heavy game, you will probably like this more than SA1, and the much better graphics and effects and the more action movie-like design to the cutscenes and even stages will make you very happy and will keep you on the edge all the time. If you play games to, play games, you will enjoy the better graphics and certain action set pieces, but overall with the more linear and streamlined approach and some nerfs to certain gameplay mechanics will leave a lot to be desired for you, so keep those in mind. Let's start with the story. It is much more simple to follow than SA1. In SA1 we had 6 individual stories that occasionally intervened with each other. SA1's story was designed as a giant spiderweb that you needed to keep track of everything. And since every character explained things from their perspectives, you got the stories that contradicted each other at times. SA2 offers a much more linear approach and deals with most, if not all, possible contradictions between stories. Unlike character story arcs from SA1, SA2 has team story arcs. Hero story consisting of adventure from Sonic, Tails and Knuckles' perspective, and Dark story consisting of Eggman, Shadow and Rouge's perspective. This solves the issues on the story aspect, but actually turns out to be a bad design choice for many when it comes to gameplay, and we will talk about that during gameplay part. Unlike what happened in SA1, the story is basically the same, whichever story you pick. Of course, you got more or less information on certain things depending on the story you choose, but both perspectives almost never contradict each other, which is a good thing in my opinion and leads to less confusion at the end. Everything begins as Eggman discovers his grandparent Gerald Robotnik's diary. He learns about the ultimate lifeform Shadow and rescues it from the GUN facility. He steals a Chaos Emerald from the government thinks it's Sonic and goes after him. Shadow mentions a space station called the Ark to Eggman and reveals it to be a giant weapon powered by the emeralds. Eventually the story turns out to stop Eggman's plans for heroes and power up the Eclipse cannon for the dark side. Of course, this is an extreme summary of the story without spoiling anything at all, including the amazing portrayal of Dr. Eggman, so you can enjoy those on your own if you haven't played this game in the last 15 years already. At the end, surprisingly, both sides actually succeed without contradicting each other. While Sonic manages to destroy the cannon, Eggman manages to put the last emerald inside the powering up console. Of course, after doing that, the screen starts showing a huge and red warning sign for Eggman, and that warning is not related to the destroyed cannon, so nothing is actually contradicting each other. This is where the last story kicks in. Similar to SA1, if you complete both sides of the story, you unlock the final episode, the last story. Turns out Gerald Robotnik wanted to destroy the Earth, and putting 7 Chaos Emeralds, the Ark starts falling towards the Earth. That would result in an explosion that would destroy the Earth. Both sides now must work together and stop this from happening in an incredibly epic superform finale, with Shadow actually becoming the hero of the game. The overall story is good, if not a great action-adventure story in my opinion. Of course, one can dissect the whole story and ask things like, how come everyone, including the idiotic military, mistakes a black-colored hedgehog for the blue-colored Sonic? Or, why does Rouge say 5 minutes should be plenty when Eggman tells her to set the bomb to 15? The stage gives you 5 minutes to complete, while the bomb is set to 15 anyway. And heck, even why Gun tries to stop and kill Rouge when she's a double agent working for them, risking everyone's operations consciously. Well, you get the point. The story is easily dissectable, but looking past the errors, which is something that you should do in most action-adventure stories, it is an incredibly fun and easy to follow story. As I said before, if you're a story person, this is a great game for you. Sadly, I won't be able to say the same if you're a pure gameplay person. The same streamlining to the adventure formula really hurts the gameplay in my opinion. Of course, you might think differently, so let's have a look at what's changed so you can decide for yourself. We got 6 characters once again: Sonic, Tails, Knuckles in Hero Story and Eggman, Shadow and Rouge in Dark Story, but unlike Sonic Adventure 1, those 6 characters only account for 3 specific gameplay formulas. Shadow being a Sonic clone, Eggman and Tails are a Gamma clone from Sonic Adventure 1, and Rouge is a Knuckles clone. Now, if done correctly, I wouldn't really call this a bad thing, since I actually complained in my Sonic Adventure 1 review that it tried to do too many things and would be much better if things were a bit more streamlined. Well, they are streamlined in SA2, but I believe it to be done quite poorly. So let's get into individual gameplay formulas, and for the record, I'll be referring to Sonic and Shadow gameplay as speed gameplay, Tails and Eggman as mech gameplay, and Knuckles and Rouge as treasure hunting. Speed gameplay pretty much works as you would expect, nothing much to complain here. It has small adjustments compared to SA1, like losing a lot more speed on sharp turns, but nothing too big in terms of gameplay. You run fast, you try to blaze through the stage as usual while killing or avoiding Eggman's or Gun's robots. You got homing attack, you got your spin dash, and you also have a new somersault melee attack that comes in handy during certain situations. The real change to the overall speed gameplay is based on the stage design. Compared to SA1, in SA2, you always feel like you're running in a corridor. Remember how open Emerald Coast felt in SA1? Yeah, maybe the stage was linear, but it actually felt open. You had ocean running on both sides, you had to climb mountains, roll down hills. Well, in City Escape, you're surrounded by the city of San Francisco. You're in a corridor of buildings all the time. Even though these 2 stages I mentioned are the first stages of both games, they really reflect the overall design philosophy of both games clearly, and the stages that follow always follow these rules. SA2 never truly feels open and free, and well, it is up to you to decide. For me, the feeling of freedom is an important thing in Sonic games, and being restricted by city walls or any kind of walls instead of the vast view of the ocean makes me feel something is missing. But of course, speed stages are not all that bad. In fact, remember what I said at the beginning about the game being more action movie-like? The stages feature incredible spectacles. Heck, you start the game by running away from military while snowboarding the streets of San Francisco, and military sends a giant death truck to capture you. The more streamlined and limited approach actually lets Sonic Team work a lot more on the action and speedy spectacles. And this is one of those reasons why I said what I said at the beginning. These spectacle scenes take quite a lot from your playing freedom, so if you're a pure gaming fan, you feel like you've been cheated a little. If you look at the overall experience, your heart will start rushing as the giant death truck is trying to crush you while you're doing your best to survive. All in all, depending how you look at it, the speed gameplay can be a downgrade or an upgrade from the previous iteration. It's all about how you perceive a game. If you like your blood rushing thanks to the action set pieces, you will love playing as Sonic and Shadow. If you want to really play your game, holding the stick down for 20 seconds while running away from a truck won't be able to impress you all that much. I should mention that one or two stages feel a bit more open than the rest, like Sky Rail from the Dark Story and Final Rush from the Hero Story, but the ones that actually feel open are limited to 80% rail grinding sections, so there you go, you lost your freedom again. Overall, even though I did not like the stage design philosophy featuring more corridors than open environments, I always have a blast playing through them, especially when trying to speedrun through them after being done with the story. The sad part is, speed stages only take around 10 to 30% of the game depending on how good you are in treasure hunting, which we'll be coming back to. Before we start the mech gameplay, I have to say I found it extremely disappointing to have Tails sit in a mech all game long. His gameplay was so fun in Adventure 1, and seeing him stuck in Tornado Mech all game long really makes me sad whenever I look back at this game. So for the mech gameplay, we have the comparison of Gamma from Sonic Adventure 1, and while I don't like saying things like this is definitely and objectively worse in SA2, since being good or bad in a game usually depends on the person playing, what I find great you might find awful or vice versa. That's why I tend to tell you how it plays or how it has changed from the previous iteration so you can form your own opinion. But in this case, I'm gonna let my opinion know. Mech gameplay in Sonic Adventure 2 sucks. It suffers greatly from the streamlining process I mentioned earlier. Remember Gamma from SA1? Gamma was incredibly mobile and agile, had open level design that you could actually roam around. He even had a speed mode if you held down the analog stick for 2 to 3 seconds, made him even faster. Well, mech gameplay in SA2 has none of that. Both mechs play exactly the same, they're extremely slow and extremely sluggish. It's really unintuitive to play as a mech. Fastest speed is low if you make the slightest turn, which you're bound to do because the camera loves moving around. You slow down even further. They feel extremely heavy. Like, the thing you're doing in the gameplay, it can hardly count as platforming, let alone being in a Sonic game. And except for one or two mediocre at most stages, they usually take around 7 to 10 minutes. That's like at least twice as long as a speed stage, with none of the fun a speed stage offers. And even if you don't like how speed stages play in this game, at least they offer unique set pieces to entertain you. Mech stages have absolutely nothing. You just walk slowly through corridors, with one or two instances that may or may not count as platforming, add the horribly cheap sudden enemy spawns at least 5 times in every single stage, and you're already looking at 40 to 50% of the game filled with pure, meaningless frustration. If there's any type of gameplay I will never return to aside from Big's fishing simulator in Sonic Adventure 1, it would be Sonic Adventure 2 mech gameplay. Once again, I'll tell you this to prevent any confusions. I love Gamma in Sonic Adventure 1 as he's agile, he's responsive, he doesn't feel heavy, he has a fast mode and his stages actually require some sort of platforming. Adventure 2 mechs have none of this. They are bland, they are very slow paced, they do nothing interesting, and the biggest offender is that they take Tails, a character capable of doing pretty much everything Sonic can in terms of abilities and speed, and put him in a boring, bland, sluggish mech. I know this part sounds like it has a lot of opinions, it probably does, but I have no mercy against mech gameplay. It does so many things wrong that there's absolutely no excuse for it. Now that we're done with the terrible part of the game, now comes the controversial part. Majority of people like speed gameplay, a majority of people hate mech gameplay. Those two have been fairly black and white. Treasure hunting in SA2 actually have a lot of people divided. Heck, even I feel divided because some stages are great while others are completely terrible. Let's start with what has changed. The changes made between SA1 and SA2 are definitely detrimental to the gameplay, there's no arguing. Once again, similar to SA1, you need to find the 3 pieces of the Master Emerald or keys or Chaos Emeralds depending on the stage gimmick. But instead of all 3 radars being immediately active, They are activated one by one. For example, in SA1, if you just started the stage and were close to piece number 3, even though you haven't found number 1 and 2, the third image would start blinking, indicating you are near. In SA2, you have to find pieces one by one. Number 2 could be right next to you, right in that box, but the radar won't tell you anything because it wants you to find number 1 first. Of course, if you played the stage 20 times and memorized all locations, you probably could guess where they are and don't even need the radar. You can collect them out of order. The pieces are there. The issue is for non-veteran hunters, this is a cheap way of making the gameplay longer than it should have been, and it gets frustrating when it's too long. Remember Tikal, at least her red light orb form, helping you find the next piece in Adventure 1? It was more of a last resort for players who are seriously having issues with treasure hunting, and it was incredibly helpful for them. Well, the other change is that we no longer have the Tikal orbs. Instead, they're replaced with monitors. They spout vague stuff like in between the pillars in a stage that has tons of pillars. Once again, a nerf to the gameplay that was totally not needed. You know what will make treasure hunting much better in SA2? Keep the SA1 system for story mode and turn the current system in a hard mode mission, on the stage select screen. Keep the manageable by everyone system for the story that everyone plays through, and keep the more challenging version for those who actually like the challenge. Make both sides happy. I'm in no way saying one version is better than the other. Yes, I have my preferences. I personally like the SA1 version better, but that doesn't mean you won't like the system in SA2. As usual, the conclusion of better or not is up to you to decide. I'm just saying that the SA2 system makes it much more challenging, so you can have a better judgment. All I'm saying is that they could have done a better job and avoid getting slammed by those who found the mandatory story section to be too challenging. And then there is the stage design that kinda makes you scratch your head. In some stages you will say, am I a god? That was too quick. And in some stages, looking at you Mad Space, am I an idiot? Do they really want me to spend half an hour in this vast stage? Like, the stage difficulty curve is quite sharp. The first treasure hunting stage of both stories are extremely easy, no challenge at all that you can easily finish within a minute. They're fairly small stages. The next couple of stages can be called balanced unless you are really unlucky with the spawns, in which case you should die and restart, since you do not lose the pieces you already collected and the remaining pieces respawn in new locations, except for the gun facility with Rouge. These stages are at a reasonable size, so even if the radar system is nerfed, you can just run or glide a lap around the map in a matter of seconds and pick up a signal. And the last couple of stages, well, let's say if you look at the description of hell in a dictionary, you will find the names of these stages. They are way too big, they're massive, both vertically and horizontally. Even if you had the old radar system from SA1, which make things a lot easier, they'd still take you a very long time to finish the stage. These stages require a lot of luck for good emerald piece spawns, otherwise you're bound to run around the map, rocket yourself to the top, glide everywhere, get stuck on a planetoid in Mad Space because that's the worst application of a gravity gimmick ever. You can just find yourself spending more than half an hour without completing the stage. As I said, you can easily love treasure hunting in the first couple of stages, but you can hate it just as easily in the latter stages. If you are good at treasure hunting, well, congrats, this gameplay style probably takes around 30% of the game. You're not that great in treasure hunting or just plain unlucky with the spawns, well, this is probably gonna take 50% of the game for you, if not even more. And let's look back a little. I said that the story arc design had a negative effect on the gameplay. This is where we go back to that statement. Of course, if you wanted to unlock that last story, you needed to complete all gameplay styles in both Sonic Adventure games. But let's say you're a Sonic fan who is not interested in the story and wants to enjoy the pure gameplay. In SA1, in order to unlock all Sonic stages, you only needed to complete the Sonic story, which only consisted of Sonic gameplay. so it wasn't really a huge deal since you were already playing the stages you wanted to unlock. Well, if you want to unlock all the Sonic stages in SA2, now you have to go through the Hero story, which puts you in speed stages, as well as other mandatory mech and treasure hunting stages that you probably are not interested in. If you're a pure speed gameplay fan, I really can't imagine such a task being enjoyable for you. What I'm trying to say is, getting the most enjoyment out of Sonic Adventure 1 was really a fun task. Heck, it wasn't even a task to unlock Sonic gameplay, you played Sonic gameplay, you already achieved your goal while trying to achieve it. Meanwhile in SA2, to get the most out of Sonic gameplay, you have a huge and frustrating task in front of you. You have to deal with things that you might and probably won't enjoy or are not particularly interested in, which makes it inferior to its predecessor by design. Since we just mentioned unlocking all the stages, I think this is a good place to mention replayability before moving any further. As I said, unlocking all stages you are interested in SA2 might take a little while and might be frustrating, but once you have done so, the game offers you an incredible amount of replayability all over. Just like SA1, we get a stage select screen with various missions. Instead of 3 missions in SA1, now we have 5 missions. Of course, the first mission is the regular story stage, so you already have it completed while unlocking all the stages. The others vary from collecting rings to finding hidden chows to time challenges, and last but not least, a hard mode version of the stage for speed stages. There are also missions for other gameplay styles, but I was not interested enough in those to actually find out what they are. But if you enjoy them, they are there. In addition to that, as a nice Easter egg, should you get A rank in all missions and collect all the medals, you unlock a Green Hill Zone stage. Of course, the replayability this game offers doesn't stop there. Sonic Adventure 2 also offers local multiplayer, so you can race through various stages and beat your friends because you're the superior Sonic player. There are even tools online that can turn your local multiplayer into a online multiplayer. I have actually made a couple of races against Sonic Hero 2471. I think he's just called Hero now, and it was fairly fun. It is actually working quite well. In addition to all those stuff that pretty much everyone is interested in, Chow Garden makes a return for those that are interested and are willing to spend hours after hours raising their beloved Chow. I'll admit this is not for everyone, but those who enjoy it really love it, so yeah, it is a great and optional addition to have in the game. We talked about the story, we talked about the gameplay, which are the two main aspects of a modern game. Now it's time for the supporting elements. Let's start with the graphics. The 2 years between SA1 and SA2 actually did wonders. In comparison, SA2 looks much more polished, much more professional in every single aspect when it comes to graphics. We got gorgeous detailed models, actual animations instead of animation loops used in SA1. We got actual facial expression instead of, well, whatever this was. The game is beautiful for a 2001 game. And it still looks beautiful, especially Sonic and Shadow's animations that actually show expressions, whether they're angry, puzzled, or even excited for more action. Sonic's mid-speed running animation looks a bit silly, but other than that, I really have no complaints. Overall, stage atmosphere suffers due to the stage design being more corridor heavy, but whatever you see is still colorful buildings or huge Halloween based mountains. Colors that make a Sonic game are still there. The game was gorgeous back in 2001 even without the existence of high definition graphics, and while it is no post Unleashed level graphics, they still hold up to be decent 15 years later, with a little bit of old feeling of course, but that is to be expected from a 15-year-old game. What doesn't hold up is the horrendous voice mixing that somehow got worse with each individual re-release and port of the game. There is no easy way of saying this. The voice mixing is terrible. The music is way too loud that you sometimes can't even hear the characters. Everyone constantly cutting each other off mid-sentence. There is actually one time that this actually fits.
Hey, that's...
That blue hedgehog again, of all places.
I found you! Faker!
Faker? I think you're the fake hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Ha! You're not even good enough
I'll
to
make
be
you
my
eat those words.
Other than this, it is just a shame to the beautiful and energetic voice acting in this game. Except for maybe Tails, but he was going through a rough patch in terms of voice acting in those times. Every single voice fits their character so well in this game that it is truly surprising Sega or 4Kids decided to replace the whole crew after Heroes, seeing this performance. Not gonna say which cast or individual voice actor I enjoy more, but I am gonna say the SA2 voice cast did a great job with what they had. It's just a shame that it gets shadowed by the awful sound mixing. The music is brilliant in this game, but honestly, did you expect anything else from the Sonic franchise? Sonic stages, very upbeat and cheerful, Shadow stages having similar but slightly darker tunes to reflect his own personality, Knuckles stages having really chill jazz rap type of music, while Rouge having more seductive type of music, once again fitting the character's personality. Sorry, I'm not really sure what to call the genre. And the Mech stages having more technological tunes. The sound design is perfect, accommodating their respective characters and gameplay styles. While they may be cheesy to some in year 2016, we got great vocal tracks for characters. My personal favorites are still Eggman by Paul Shortino and of course, It Doesn't Matter, the remixed version for SA2 by Tony Harnell. Just incredible tracks for their time, and even today, depending on your preference, they really do justice to their respective characters. Crush 4D once again kills it with Live and Learn, becoming one of the most memorable vocal tracks of this franchise. The music overall is just amazing. Last but not least, the characters are depicted almost perfectly aside from Tails. How they move, how they act, what and how they say it are just perfect. Of course, there are some stupid lines like Amy's speech to Shadow during the last story, and the terrible voice mixing takes the overall experience down a lot. But I personally hold the character portrayals in SA2 to be one of the best in the series, on par with Black Knight, which was spot on when it comes to character portrayals. As we come to the end of the review, first off I wanna say thank you for watching. As usual, I don't give review scores, I'm totally against the concept of review scores. Enjoying the game is something subjective, and therefore in my reviews I just present you with the information you need to come to your own personal conclusion, and I hope this review was helpful for that. At times I also give my opinions, yes, but I make sure they don't come off as facts. I believe that's how a review should be, unlike those huge companies that score games and decide for their viewers and readers by themselves. And if you're kind or interested enough to still be listening to the review prologue, make sure to subscribe for more game reviews and playthroughs. I also have a couple other reviews such as my SA1 or Sonic Lost World review, as well as reviews of other games if you're interested. Any kind of feedback is appreciated. These reviews are for you guys, so I take your feedback really seriously. Make sure to let me know what you thought in the comments, if I was spot on, if I didn't go too in depth on a certain aspect, if you still have questions after this review, anything, and I'll make sure to answer your questions or do better accordingly to your suggestions in my next review, which will probably Sonic Heroes after my playthrough of it. You can also find me on Twitter at Gamerturk95 and on Facebook at facebook.com/Gamerturk. You can always contact me there as well. Once again, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Take care.